Welcome to the Miller Report. What a week we have had.
Jesus.
Let's see. On Wednesday, we had on the Miller Report, Eric Adams. Next week, we have Curtis Sliwa. The following week, we've got Andrew Cuomo. And today with us, we have Jim Walden.
The main contender.
So welcome, Jim. This is your second time on the Miller Report, I believe. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your wisdom and all of your intelligence throughout all of this chaos that's going on. I have been listening to you.
I appreciate being on.
So what is going on here? We've got Andrew, Mayor, and yourself now all running as independents. Like, what happened to our parties?
There's only one independent in this race. I've been an independent since 2006. It's a matter of principle, not political survival, and that's what happened with both Cuomo and Adams, right? They didn't have any other options. So, my view is this is exactly what we need in City Hall right now is an independent mayor who's not beholden to either of the parties, that's going to call balls and strikes on good policy. So I'm hoping the voters see it the same way.
Do you think they just don't believe in two parties anymore? Like, people have to understand this. Like, what happened?
Well, the two-party system, if there was a party that was polling and someone said, what do you think of the two-party system, whether it's nationally at the state level or the local level, people are unhappy with the two-party system. I mean, it's produced terrible candidates at all levels for a long period of time, and independence is a better way to go because you can pick candidates that dovetail with your perspectives, because there are very few people, except at the extremes, that are one-dimensional. Some of them have some Republican-ish values and some have more Democratic values, but a lot of people have both. I happen to have both because I've been an independent for 20 years. So
just before we get into the interview, I think it is important for our listeners to understand, if you are not running as a Democrat in the city, which is mostly, 70% Democratic, what are your chances of winning? And take us through that if you're not running on that party. Who automatically gets the Democratic nomination, and why will this be an upset?
Yeah. So you're right that the statistics favor Democrats, but we live in a very weird time, right? We've got a 33-year-old with a paper-thin resume, mostly a failure, who's a socialist, anti-cop, and anti-Semitic, right? Running on the Democratic primary in a primary where only about 30% or so of Democrats showed up. So really the November election, I think the media is being accurate about this. The November election is the real show.
The purple voters.
So there's a million voters in New York City now that are independent. There's more than there are Republicans, and more Democrats are identifying as independents. So I think people are going to take a hard look at all of us. We're just past the Democratic primary. People have a little bit of election fatigue from the primary. We're in the middle of the summer. The race is really going to heat up in September, and that's when people are really going to start educating themselves, and they'll have a lot to choose from, right? They've got a socialist Democrat. They've got a Republican who is a lovely guy. I generally say nice things about him, but he's never had a professional job of any kind. He's never run anything. And then they've got three independents, only one of which is actually an independent. So it'll be an interesting race for sure.
Let's just go back to those numbers. So there are 4.7 million registered voters in New York, as I understand it. 1.1 million came out during the primary. In my math, that gives us 3.7 left. Why did you say a million?
I'm thinking about Mamdani's 545,000. So Mamdani got 545,000. If we're lucky in the general, it'll be 1.2 or 1.3. In 2021, it was only 1.1, right? So I think that we'll get more voters. Some of those are Mamdani voters, but that leaves just about 700,000 or 800,000 votes for the rest of the
Democratic. Got it. Okay. So let's just get into it. You're running against a current mayor, a former governor, and a current state assembly member. Why do you think you could win?
Because we live in strange times where people are deeply suspicious of career politicians, particularly failed ones. And really what we have in terms of the three people that have been, counting Curtis in that race, we have four people other than me. We have a formerly indicted mayor who has been accused of epic corruption, who is in the middle of one scandal after another. We've got a former governor who resigned in disgrace, who did some things well, like building infrastructure, but did other things terribly, like managing COVID. And then we have Zoran Mamdani, who I just described, 33 years old, a track record of failure, never really managed anything in his life, who's the Democrat, the chosen Democrat. And we have Curtis. Curtis is, a real New Yorker and a civic leader, but not someone who, in my humble view, is capable of running something as complex as City Hall. So it's going to be an interesting race for people when they really dial in and see who's got the core capabilities. At the bottom line, I'm the only person that has no scandal and no negatives.
You never ran anything either, though, Jim.
I've run my own law firm for 10 years. But
not in politics.
No, I've never run it. But neither did, if you think about Adams ran Borough Hall. He had a staff of...
He was in government. You have never been.
Other than as a prosecutor, but you're right. I never was an elected official, and I think that counts to my credit, right? Bloomberg ran a big company. I ran a smaller company, but we're both executives. And I think that executive experience matters here when we've got so many significant problems that career politicians have failed to fix, including the mayor, right? We've got a mayor who's been here for a term. Most of that term has been him being embroiled in scandal. In the meantime, we still have mentally ill people on the street. We have an NYPD that is still in disarray. We have a housing crisis that he has fixed with Band-Aids on bullet wounds. So I'm the person that for 30 years has fought for New Yorkers of every stripe from every walk of life and found solutions. And so if people want to look at someone who actually is held himself to a standard of success, that's me, right? I win for clients, and I'm going to treat New York City as the most important client I've ever had. And I'm going to be accountable when I fail. I'm not going to be one of those politicians that stands up there at a press conference and says, oh, look at all the great things we did when we still left the problems alone. Crime stats are a perfect example. Who are the biggest neighborhoods that constantly appear on the top? In the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, right? Brownsville, East New York, Mott Haven, Hunts Point. Every single time the mayor stands up and says we've got crime under control, when you look at the data, those communities have seen very little relief.
So you don't believe the data?
Well, I believe that he's cherry picking. I mean, the overall crime statistics are better, particularly in Manhattan, but that doesn't mean that the communities that are always unseen in this city are still suffering. I mean, I've gone to every borough, 10, 15 times at this point. And the places that I've seen in this city where there are drug addicts, mentally ill, severely mentally ill people all over the place, it is really eye-opening to go to these communities and see how poorly they've been served. I was up in the Bronx, and I was up on my way to a campaign event, and there was this enormous pile of trash on a street corner that had clearly been sitting there for 2 weeks. I literally got a broom and a shovel and cleaned it up myself because I was so...
Cleaned it up yourself.
I did.
Put your seatbelt on, because I'm looking at the new budget, and a lot of services are going to be cut. We'll get into that shortly.
Yeah.
But let's focus on real estate, which is a very big part of the Miller report. One of the reasons, one of the issues that Mamdani has gotten so much notoriety has been his rent freeze on 1 million apartments, which you could think 2 people live in an apartment is 2 million votes. 500,000 came out and voted for him. There is a crisis for affordable housing. There is a crisis for both sides, the tenants that cannot afford to live here, the tenants that have to pay 50% of their rent, of their income on rent, and also the landlords that own small homes, one-family homes, apartments, condos, single-family homes, that their rent is going down, their expenses are going up, their real estate taxes are going up, insurance goes up, maintenance goes up, and they're locked. How can we address this? Because we do need affordable housing, and I do see both sides. What is your opinion on that?
So, first of all, talk about the way to deal with this in a mature, thoughtful way is based on data. The stupid way to do it is by slogans, by saying freeze the rent. Freeze the rent. There was just a great publication last week by David Solomon of Goldman, who kind of picked apart exactly what would happen if we froze the rent. Very thoughtful, right? Mamdani offers slogans. let's take freeze the rent. Is freeze the rent going to help?
Excuse me, I have to interrupt you.
Sure.
I want to quote what he's saying.
Please.
He's saying there should be a statewide housing guarantee housing for everyone. He wants a long-term transformation of privately held housing into communal or public ownership. Does that mean he's going to take away private homes? If I own a building and I live on the first floor, does that mean the second floor gets taken away from me? What does this all mean? Because people are in panic mode.
They're in panic mode because the person that they elected is at bottom a Marxist. Period. Full stop. He is an acolyte of the communist tradition. He wants to take private property, and he wants to seize the means of production. These are not my words. These are his words. He said them again and again. So I'm a huge believer, whether we're talking about politicians at the federal, state, or local level, is when they say something, before they're running for office, believe what they said before they were running for office, not what they're saying on the campaign trail. So he wants to turn New York City into a socialist enterprise, period, a planned economy. That would be terrible in the capital of capitalism. And it would be terrible because the free market can fix these problems if we just remove the restraints that the Democrats largely have been piling on to make housing harder to build. So I've got a plan to address this. It's a million times better than his.
We want to hear your plan.
It's based on data.
One thing that I also read this morning is that another plan of his is going to require landlords to keep the temperature of apartments at 78 degrees. Who's paying for all this? Who is going to pay for all this? Because as I look at it, anybody who is going to be a landlord or is going to make any part of capitalism possible will leave New York. And who's going to be left? There'll be no supply, which will increase the demand, which will bring the prices up for people for every working family.
For a guy that is as well educated as him, he's had every, the path in life has been lined with rose petals for this guy, right? He's had the best education. He went to Bronx Science. He went to Bowdoin. Bowdoin's a fantastic school. His policies are fairy tales, right? First of all, most of them would never survive a court challenge, A. And B, all he is going to do is provoke a massive overreaction from Washington when he tries to essentially turn our economy into a socialist economy. It is never going to work. And I don't know what's going to happen with his poll numbers, but at least based on that last poll, he came down quite a bit in that poll. And I think that there are people that have buyer's remorse because you have the people that voted for him because they are DSA members, Democratic Socialists of America.
I have to interrupt you again. I'm
Please.
very sorry.
No,
I
don't
disagree
apologize.
with you because young kids cannot get jobs. Artificial intelligence has taken over, and there are more kids enrolled in law school right now because they don't know what to do. So these kids, their parents are saying, do something. So they're going to law school. You can't even get into law school anymore. Kids that get perfect scores on the LSATs cannot get in because it's such an overemployment, enrollment. So
thank God I went to law school when I did.
That you did. They can't get jobs. This guy's offering a solution, be it as it may, as Eric Adams said, he is a current assembly member. If he was able to do these things, he would do it right now. So it's all a fairy tale. We get it.
Okay.
But people are believing in the hope, and I think he's getting more popular, not less popular, and everybody needs to wake up.
Well, we'll see. We'll see as we get closer to the election. I don't think he's going to age well, right? I really don't. I think that I generally think that people are smarter than we give them credit for, and that there are people that will vote for him because they're pro-Palestine and they're single-issue voters, or they want a socialist, they're single-issue voters. But for the people that crossed over for him in the primary because they were disgusted by Cuomo, they couldn't vote for Adams, they didn't know any of the other candidates, I don't know that they're going to stick with Zohran Mamdani once we're really in a debate and we're on the stage and he's confronted with the kinds of stuff that the media is really not confronting him on, right? They've confronted him on globalize the intifada, the phrase that essentially defines antisemitism all around the world, and his refusal to rebuke that and to disavow it. But what they haven't really challenged him on at all is his actual terrorist sympathies. Because when you look through his record as carefully as we have, he has many times over the course of his academic career and even after, either him or the people, his inner circle around him, have lifted up and essentially praised actual terrorists. So
give us an example.
Well, there was a terrorist named Resmea O'Day who was convicted in an Israeli court of one actual bombing and one planned bombing. The actual bombing killed 2 Jewish students in a supermarket. She was convicted. She served 10 years. She came to the United States without disclosing her terrorism conviction. Who was in power at the time? The Obama administration. Not exactly a regressive group of people from Mamdani's perspective. They found out that she had a terrorism conviction that she did not.
How'd she get in the country?
She lied on her application. She never disclosed the conviction. The Obama people prosecuted her for immigration fraud. She was convicted, and then they tried to deport her. Mamdani started this group at Bowdoin called Students for Justice in Palestine, right? SJP. The SJP chapter that he was running at the time posted on their social media website that she was a victim, and then he later called Obama evil. Mamdani called Obama evil, in part, I think, because of the situation. He cares more about, quote unquote, poor oppressed terrorists than he does about Western values. And I don't understand why the media is not more focused on this. I tried to publish an op-ed that laid out several instances of this happening, including some of the very troubling backgrounds of some of his supporters, one of his endorsers, and some of his staff.
Who's one of his endorsers?
One of his endorsers was a guy that was labeled by the feds as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 bombing. The guy gave $1,000 to a PAC that was supporting Mamdani, and then later did an Instagram post his roughly 10,000 members supporting Mamdani's campaign.
Do you have facts on this, or do you have to fact check this, everybody?
I have a whole. I'll give you the op-ed that I wrote that I'm still trying to get someone to publish.
Who have you given it to?
Well, I gave it to the Daily News. To the New York Post, and it's now sitting with the Jewish press. So
why would the Post not put that up?
I have no idea, to tell you the truth. And this is opposition research. We cite checked and fact checked everything and gave primary source materials for it. So this was not like me speculating.
Okay, well, maybe WABC will run it.
I hope so.
Let's talk more about what's happening in our wonderful city. According to Eric Adams, again, who was on the show a few days ago, police statistics show subway ridership is up by 9%. Crime is down by 24% year over year. The MTA reports May congestion pricing brought in $61 million, which is $3.3 million higher than April. What do you say about all this? And based on those numbers, polling should do much better, if you believe in polling.
Right. So my perspective on all this is, what took you so long? I mean, the first 3 years of his administration was a lot of failure and a lot of acrimony, largely because he is one of the most vain, self-centered mayors we've ever had. Right? He's focused so much on himself and his nightlife and, his celebrity that I don't think he takes the job very seriously. We've had 4 police commissioners, and we're not even through his first term. Finally, he found one that is sticking and is doing a good job. His first police commissioner would have done a great job, other than the fact that Mayor Adams and Phil Banks micromanaged her out of the job. Then we had 2 interims, neither of which stuck, and now Jessica Tisch, who's surrounded by Eric Adams' cronies who are involved in another scandal that's breaking now. So I'm not a fan of his. I think that he's a transactional politician, and the fact that we're in a better situation than we were 6 months ago. Remember where we were 6 months ago? That's where we could be under Eric Adams 6 months into his next term, because I don't think he learns.
If you were not in the race and you had to choose between Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, who would you pick?
Mother Teresa.
And if Eric Curtis was not running? Trying to ask you a direct question.
I'm going to give you a direct answer. They're both they're both, in my view, terrible candidates. But if I had to choose between them, I would choose Andrew Cuomo.
Why?
Because I read the indictment. I knew the evidence against Eric Adams. Based on that, I'm convinced that he's corrupt in the sense of taking money and putting it in his own pocket. Andrew Cuomo has his own corruption problems, but I think it was more him hiding or not wanting it to be revealed, the corruption that was around him. I don't think he was directly profiting from it. But when he shut down the Moreland Commission, you know, if you remember that back that started a whole Southern District investigation. What we don't need is another mayor to drag us into scandal.
People are complaining that it was Andrew Cuomo who got us into the bail, the nursing home, all of these allegations, and you still would vote for him.
I understand that you're basically saying you pick one broken guy or another broken guy. Between those broken guys, I would choose the person who actually is not involved, at least as I'm aware, in corruption, where he's actually taking things and trying to put money in his own pocket. And based on what I knew of the Eric Adams indictment, that was certainly a component of what the government alleged.
Sorry, Jim, but you are an attorney and you are proven innocent until guilty, and he was not proven guilty on anything, and that kind of is not fair to say about him. We're not sure. These are just all allegations.
Well, I'm not talking about his ultimate guilt or innocence. I wish that he had been tried. I wish that the public had been able to see the proof, and I wish that he had the right to defend himself, because now he's working under a shadow because the public was never able to see the quality and quantity of the proof. All I'm saying is, as an attorney who is very familiar with the case, I've said this publicly, I represented one of the witnesses that was forced to testify against him.
Which witness?
I don't want to say, but it was someone in the fire department who got the arm put on him to essentially conduct an inspection of the Turkish embassy before the Turkish embassy was ready for people. And remember, everyone, that it was Turkey that was giving the straw donations to Eric Adams. I'm not talking about, upgrades in his airline travel. I'm talking about straw donations according to the indictment. So it's based on my understanding of the evidence and my careful reading of the indictment that convinces me that everything I heard about Eric Adams from the time that he was back in Borough Hall is true.
This is just one man's opinion. I want my audience to know this is one man's opinion. We are not commenting on this. This is your opinion.
Okay, my opinion.
Let's go on to the city's state budget, which just came out a few days ago. And I'm looking, and it says federal funding cuts because of the big, beautiful bill. The city is going to be hit with an approximately $2.7 billion loss. Hochul is directing state agencies to cut $750 million from the state budget, but this won't even solve the problem. It can be a lot worse. One, where is the money going to come from? And would you consider raising taxes? If you are the mayor, what is your solution, and how are we going to combat this?
Yeah. So first of all, one of my solutions is in a plan I've already put out. We've obviously been enduring a lot from the Trump administration in terms of attacks on the city and attacks on our institutions, and we need some level of protection. So one of the things that I don't understand why, I do understand why he didn't do this, but he should have had a much more muscular litigation plan to get ahead of some of this stuff. But with respect to these budget cuts, Washington can do to us whatever it wants to, and there's very little that we can do other than try to raise taxes. So I don't want to raise taxes as mayor. For sure, when it comes to property taxes, income taxes.
Could you imagine we're going to raise the real estate taxes more, but cap the rents?
No.
And make a requirement that they have to do certain repairs, but no more rent coming in. Raise the taxes. Try and get insurance. That's gone up by what, 30%?
So
how is this fair?
None of it is fair. But where I'm going to start in City Hall is by looking where we can tighten our belt, because next year, our budget's going to be something like $118 billion, right? And I just look at the infrastructure in City Hall alone. There's millions of dollars that can be cut by getting rid of some of these mayors.
Like what?
The mayor's office of Fern Development. There's all these mayor's offices.
I want some concrete solutions, Jim. What can they cut? Police?
No, they should not cut. Well, I've just put out a plan today, to be specific, to reduce every city agency by 1.5% and to reduce capital expenditures by less than 1%. And from those two things alone, that's about $250 million.
Can you just explain what capital expenditures which ones you would cut.
So, well, there's I think it's a $19 billion estimate of capital improvements for next year.
Like what?
So some of that money is completely discretionary things like enhancements to parks, right? There's money that's being set aside to expand bike lanes. There are a lot
Expand bike lanes?
Expand bike lanes.
I thought we were trying to take away the scooters. We're going to get more?
There's money in the if you carefully look at the budget the way that we did, there's discretionary dollars in there. And at a time when we have increasing needs to strengthen our safety net on the affordability problem, but we also have shrinking federal revenues, one of two things has to happen. We're going to have to go to Washington and try to negotiate some sort of détente so that we can keep some of that money, or we're going to have to tighten the belt, or more likely, we're going to have to do both. So I want to be the mayor that bridges all of those gaps because we actually need all of that stuff. We need an adult that's prepared to go to Washington at arm's length, who's not either on under the president's thumb or completely co-opted by him, to be able to advocate. Listen, if New York starts going down economically, who is that bad for? It's bad for the entire country.
Well, it's good for the Republicans because then they'll come back in. During the midterm elections, maybe the Republicans will win. Maybe this is a good thing.
Well, I personally am not so jaded that I think that Washington is going to try to marshal support in the midterms off the back of a decreasing New York. I think that I believe President Trump when he says that he loves New York and wants New York to succeed, and I want him to want New York to succeed. So I want to, as I've said many times, I want to cooperate with Washington everywhere I can that's consistent with New York values, and in places where he's rubbing up against our self-determination, I want to be able to push back respectfully to try to get New York what we need so that we don't become, a city that is in such chaos, because there's a lot of chaos and uncertainty and fear right now.
So how important do you think it is that the city mayor works with the federal government, and have you ever worked with the government?
Well, I mean, in various forms and fashions, I've worked with federal, state, and local authorities, largely in the context of trying to solve problems that I've encountered during the course of my business career. So have I ever brought houses of Congress together? Oh, well, actually, yes, I did once, right? I actually drafted a piece of legislation that got through both chambers of commerce, and the president signed it in December of 2020.
Have you met the president?
I've not met the president.
So you've had no dealings with him?
No.
And how important do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing for the president of the United States to work closely and get along with the mayor of New York?
I think it's very important for the mayor of New York to work closely with and get along with the president. Does that mean bending over or jumping every time the president says jump? No, but that's what an arm's length relationship is. He's the commander in chief, right? But at the end of the day, when it comes to things that are consistent with New York values and our prosperity, we have to cooperate. And in other places, like aspects of ICE enforcement, I'm going to advocate strongly to dial that back. I'm going to get
into that, but do you think this is helping or hurting Mayor Adams that President Trump has not fully endorsed him and kind of is a little bit endorsing Cuomo right now? How are you reading that?
So I think that again, caveat for your audience, this is just one man's opinion, but I think that there is a shift that's occurring, and I'm not exactly sure what it's about. I wonder whether or not people are really looking hard at the money that was spent in the migrant crisis. Because remember, the migrant crisis in New York was not a fait accompli. I mean, you can look back at the op-ed that I wrote, in 2023 or whatever it was. We had the legal authority to stop those buses. We did not have to have that migrant crisis in New York.
Expand on that.
There's a federal law that prohibited the bus companies doing what they were doing by bringing migrants here. I understand why Texas wanted to do it. I understand why. But there was actually a federal law that they were breaking by doing that. And I went to the Adams administration and said, you have a way to stop these buses so that we're not getting all these migrants and they go back there. And then the federal government will have to deal with them.
So he tried to. He had a federal investigation after he tried.
What I was told was that was at a time that he didn't want to appear to be anti-migrant, right? And you can look back at Eric Adams' public statement. This is one of the things that is deeply frustrating with career politicians. They blow with the wind. So look back, fact check me. If you look back at that time, what you will see is the Eric Adams that says, I want migrants here. I'm going to be welcome them with open arms. That's why he would not do what was necessary, which was get an injunction against those bus companies. Now, how much money have we spent? So I think—
One man's opinion, everybody.
One man's opinion. I think there's been a shift. Again, you asked a question, I'm going to answer it. I think there's been a shift at the White House. I think the White House, as we speak, is shifting from Eric Adams to Andrew Cuomo. I'm not sure why, but you saw that Cuomo stopped attacking the president and took down some of the stuff.
I did notice that.
Yeah, so there's definitely something going on behind the scenes there.
Well, I think President Trump cares about New York. I think that he wants to go with whoever he thinks has got a better chance to win. He has money here. So does Stephen Witkoff. So does Jared Kushner's family. There's a lot of money in New York, and I hope they save us. Let's go back to what you talked about, ICE.
Sure.
If you become the mayor, are you going to work with ICE? How are you going to handle that?
So this is another Mamdani fiction. I mean, Mamdani's position is, I'm going to get rid of ICE in New York. Yeah, tell me how that's going to happen, right? The federal government has control over the immigration process. That's the law. So I'm going to follow the law. I've said this repeatedly. Our sanctuary city policies have gotten us in trouble in a number of respects. One important one that needs to change is this. Do you remember that woman that was immolated on the subway? She was lit on fire on the subway.
Yes.
Yeah. Debrina Kawan was her name.
The homeless woman.
So the person that did that was ultimately arrested, and ICE couldn't put a detainer on him. So if he happened to have been released from bail, on bail, which unfortunately because of bail reform could happen. ICE couldn't put a detainer on him. That's ridiculous. The idea that we can't cooperate with ICE on criminal migrants is insane, right? We need ICE to help get criminal migrants.
I got to tell you, I went to get a manicure on Saturday. My manicurist, her name is Lady. She was swept up from the little manicure place, and she was taken away by ICE, this little old lady. I don't get it. So there's got to be some balance here.
But this is what I was talking about in terms of places I could cooperate and places that I would want to push back. The way in which ICE is acting is harmful to our brand as the United States, the rule of law place, the place that where we treat everyone with as much as possible with respect and dignity. I understand ICE acting aggressively, as they should, with criminal migrants. When it comes to people that are doing their job, that are going to immigration hearings, the way that ICE is acting, I don't think is in the best interests of New York or the country. And honestly, the skeptic in me thinks that that's part of the point, is to create division and a little bit of chaos. So I wish that would dial back. I wish the mayor had gone to the president and said, please, let's focus on criminal migrants, and we will figure out how to increase the speed. Because if Washington did the sensible thing, it would give us more immigration judges, because a lot of these people have pending immigration cases. We should be letting their cases go to conclusion. But we need more immigration judges to do that. And then if someone's political asylum application is not granted, then we can deport them with dignity. And that's a better way for America to operate.
I think that I'm just asking the question, but I do think that if you are a criminal and you are possibly going to get deported, you are not paying taxes. You are not somebody that could be found easily, and it's the people, because you have to have the numbers that are not committing the crimes, are easier to catch.
Well, and
that's the sad part.
That is the sad part, right? Because a lot of those people they came here for all the right reasons.
Yes.
Many of them did the right thing. And we should act consistently with our values and let them get due process of law. We all know that most political asylum claims are denied, right? So for your listeners, a political asylum claim means that someone says, I can't go back to my country because I will be killed, or I'm part of a category of people that are under attack by the government. Most of those claims are denied. Fine. But we still have a process where people can file them once they get here. And do you know, you want to take a guess whether it was a Democrat or a Republican that wrote the bill that embraces political asylum claims?
How much do I get for this bet?
A Republican from Florida, no less. So that's the law of the United States. Let's follow the law. If we want to accelerate the process, give us more immigration judges, maybe change some of the procedural rules so there are fewer delays. But let's follow the law.
Let's move on to a subject that's near and dear to me, which is anti-Semitism, which has gone absolutely berserk, not just in New York, but all over the world.
Bananas.
If you're the mayor, how are you going to combat that?
Oh, forcefully. I mean, I'm not religious at all, right? So I was.
Are you Jewish?
No, I was
Catholic?
I was raised by someone who adopted Catholicism for 15 minutes, but it never stuck on any of us. So I've been essentially a secular person my whole life. I'm a devotee to policy, not religion. But I strongly believe in people's right to a religion. And what's happening to the Jewish community is insane in my view. We've got people in this country that are deriding ICE for wearing masks, but they're fine with anti-Semites on college campuses attacking Jewish kids wearing masks.
Could you imagine if they were doing this to Italians?
No.
Or African-American or anybody?
Anyone. So the level of anti-Semitism that we have essentially started to accept is unacceptable in my view. So I wrote a policy on this months and months before any other candidate spoke on this because this is personally important to me. So no masks at college protests, no Hamas flags flying in our city. And if people take me to court, good. Go ahead and take me to court and I'll litigate that. But it's a designated terrorist organization. We're going to get the anti-Semitism out of our schools because the history of the Middle East in some of our schools in New York City is being taught in an anti-Semitic way.
Today I read that they want to take out of the Board of Education the Jews from the Holocaust in the reading material.
Oh my God. I filed a lawsuit about this after October 7th. There was a school in Brooklyn where there was a Jewish administrator that was essentially encouraging kids to foment, including attacking a Jewish teacher and the security director that was trying to keep her safe. They were literally like etching swastikas in desks and putting up anti-Semitic notes. So we have to get serious about the enforcement of anti-Semitism crimes, and this is how I'm going to do it. Nobody knows this. There's a governing document for the city of New York. It's called the New York City Charter. And guess what power it gives the mayor? The mayor is the chief magistrate of the city of New York. So the mayor has criminal enforcement powers. You don't have to rely exclusively on the DAs. So I'm going to start a hate crimes branch, and we're going to hold these people accountable and make examples of them. And we're not going to plea bargain with them. And I'll go to Albany if I have to be able to prosecute felonies, because under the state constitution, we can only prosecute misdemeanors, but I will keep them in jail during the pendency.
How are you going to keep them in jail?
Because there'll be a city court that is dedicated to hate crimes. And whether it's hate crimes against Jews, Muslims, trans people, whoever, they're going to see very serious enforcement that is intended for deterrence. Because the reason there's an increase in hate crimes is because there's no accountability and there's no holding these people responsible and making examples of them. And I'm in the city of New York, I'm going to have zero tolerance for hate crimes.
Mayor Adams has been good to the Jewish people, and apparently he is running on one of his platforms is against anti-Semitism. Is that not true?
Yeah, Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo have both said those things, right? Where's his program to actually attack hate crimes, the people that perpetrate hate crimes? He cares.
It's a political year.
To me, it's a bunch of talk, right? When you see a candidate who's saying things for the first time when they're campaigning, never believe them unless you're a sucker, right? I cared about anti-Semitism before I was running for office. I'm not saying this now. I'm giving a solution. And my solution is one I invite everyone else to adopt. It's true of all my policies. Start a hate crimes unit in the city courts, arrest every single person that is responsible for a hate crime, hold them in jail during the course of their trial, and then sentence them to the maximum with no plea bargaining. And then you will see hate crimes start to disappear.
Masks.
and no masks.
Let's go on to the candidates because I know we're running out of time. Firstly, whose idea was it? Because I want your honest opinion here.
Sure.
Honest answer.
Sure.
Was it your idea? Was it Patterson's idea? Was it Andrew Cuomo's idea? Whose idea was it? Because somebody's lying here.
Somebody's lying.
Whose idea was it for all of you candidates to look who's polling best in September and then unite? Let me just finish my sentence.
Please.
So when Mayor Adams was here last week, he said that it was Andrew Cuomo's idea. Andrew Cuomo said it was your idea, or maybe he told me it was Patterson's idea. Whose idea was it? Tell us.
Where's Andrea? Andrea from my campaigns here. She can tell us whose idea. It was my idea. But whatever. This is so
I want to know because somebody's lying.
So stupid. But you can look because it's published on my website. You can see the date on which it was published. It was my pledge, right? Pledge for the free market was first, and then the press conference was some days later. I was shocked. I found out about the press conference after it had happened, the way everybody else found out. It wasn't
Patterson's idea.
No, I never spoke to Patterson about this.
And it wasn't Andrew's idea.
No, and listen.
Andrew didn't whisper this in your ear.
Andrew Cuomo is not calling me. I'm having zero contact with him. And listen to me. People who have followed me on social media know that I've been the hardest, other than once I realized that Mamdani was going to win, which was before the Democratic primary. I've been the hardest on Andrew Cuomo because of the hypocrisy of many of his failures. So it wasn't Andrew Cuomo. Now, Andrew Cuomo agreed to it. I'm grateful for that. That's good. But I don't want Andrew Cuomo standing alone to agree to it. I want Curtis Sliwa and Eric Adams to agree to it as well. Because at the end of the day, we have a simple math problem. If there is more than one person opposing Mamdani, we're going to have a spoiler situation. He's going to get roughly 550,000 votes. That only leaves 6, 7, maybe 800,000 votes for the other non-Mamdani candidates.
We're going to get new voters. According to Mayor Adams, we might get another 1 million votes.
I think Eric Adams lives in his own head. I mean, where are we going to? Is he going to go to Turkey? Is he going to go to Turkey to get those votes?
Oh, stop! There'll be a lot of new voters coming out. But let's follow the money.
Sure.
What happens to the people to these candidates that have received campaign funds? Do they get to keep it if they drop out, or do they have to return it?
Well, under the rules from our regulator, the strict reading of it is they'd have to return it if they got out of the race. Hold on. But they gave a pass to the Democrats on a technicality. So
just now?
During ranked choice voting. So someone could say, well, vote for me, but rank this other person second. That's basically saying I'm not going to win, but rank this guy second because he'll be first as soon as I fail. All of the Democrats, not all of the Democrats, but many of the Democrats did that. They were so concerned about having to repay campaign finance money from the matching program that they went to the regulators and got a written letter of permission.
You've seen that?
I have. It's available online. So my request is very simple. Like, if the Democrats were allowed to do that, why shouldn't we at least be able to say? Have
you told this to Eric and Curtis and Andrew?
It's in the public pledge.
You think they know that they don't have to return the funds?
No, that if we get permission. So
that's
just
a
to
big
be clear,
if.
But, well,
this is a Democratic state.
Yeah, but this is what I agreed to do. This is why this was not like. This was my service to New York. This was not in my political interest because I think I'm the one that's going to surge. But putting that aside, you laugh, but I've proven people wrong. I've been proved people wrong before. But what I agreed to was that if we just got consent among the four, that I would take the onus of going to the regulators and doing the papers that are necessary to ask permission. I said I would take that on out of my own money to do that. And I'm doing it for a reason, because I care more about New York than I care about my own political interests.
Do you think these candidates care about more? Do you think these candidates care more about New York than their own ego?
No, not a one. Me. And people can test that.
It was Andrew's idea. It's easy for him to say it because he was doing better in the polls.
No, it was my idea.
Well, it was his idea to go along with it first.
He went along to it.
He was the first one to come on board.
He was the easy one.
Okay, so what will it take to get Curtis and Eric to do that? And will they?
Well, listen, I think we should give them a little time, right? It's a relatively new idea. It's clearly out of the box thinking. I hope people say wow, Jim Walden is the one person that seems to come up with novel solutions to problems. Now, will it work? It will work if Curtis and Eric come along. Will they come along now? No, they've both been very stubborn about it. Once time passes, we have a couple more polls, we have a debate. Let's see what happens after the debate.
We're going to do the debate right here in WABC. I'm going to hold it.
I will. I've already challenged Eric Adams to a debate, and he declined. So I'm happy to debate these guys as much as possible. Let's see what they do after the debate. Because after the debate and after more poll numbers come out, maybe they will start seeing things a little differently. Because I think that each of those candidates has probably hit a ceiling of support because they have so many negatives. I have only up to go because I don't have negatives. I had a long history of public service as a prosecutor. I've had voluntary public service as a pro bono.
I love you, Jim, but you're not going anywhere.
Well, we'll see.
Let's keep moving along. Let's move along.
I'll bet you on that one.
I'll bet you on that one. Listen, it might be for the best, but I don't think you're winning. But I do love your passion for this. And I do want to save New York because I am getting tons of phone calls from my investors that want to sell their properties. I'm trying to keep the panic out. So
let me say this.
Very, very, very important that we save New York.
Let me ask you a question. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
5 months ago, had you ever heard the name Zorhan Mamdani?
No, I have not. And I want to ask you that. Where did he come from?
Wait a second. So why can't I do it? Why can't I do it? If he did it with a 33-year-old with no resume to speak of, you're going to say that in the city of New York, this guy that came from nowhere to now he's the Democrat.
Because you're too late.
Well.
I think you might be great next time, but I think you're too late. But let's talk about Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
He is leading in the polls.
He is.
Paint a picture for us. What's going to happen to New York if he does win, and where do you see the city?
Well, listen, everyone's going to try to push him to the middle, but he has been super clear about a couple things, right? So there are a couple things that I can predict with no hesitation whatsoever. First of all, he is going to use the platform of City Hall to bring pressure on every single company that does business with Israel to stop. He will hurt them. He will vilify them.
That already happened last week. They stopped investing in Israeli bonds.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad Lander.
Thank you, Brad Lander. So you see what the Democratic Socialists want to do. They hate Israel. I think they're anti-Semitic in their hearts, if not in their minds, in both maybe. But first of all, he's going to the BDS movement is boycott, divest, and sanction. He's going to have a form of BDS in City Hall, and there's $26 million of Israeli private equity money here. So no one's thought through what that's going to do to the economy of the city of New York if he's successful in doing that. That's number one. Number two, it is going to be socialist policy and appropriation of as much private-owned property as he can get away with. And number three, we're going to have capital flight and law enforcement flight like you've never seen. Because I'll tell you, did I ask him this question? I think I asked him, but somebody asked him this question at one of the forum. Yeah. Don't you think you're going to chase away businesses? His answer is so ridiculously glib. Oh, of course businesses will stay here. They stayed here during COVID. Seriously?
They didn't.
They first of all, they didn't.
It's called remote work.
A. And B, do you really think that businesses want to stick around for the communism show or the socialism show, whatever word you choose, given how much support he's gotten and how determined he is? He said this not once, not twice. He said this many times. He wants a socialist form of government. Why, as a rich kid that grew up in lavish schools, with money all around him, I can't begin to get in his head. But those three things I can predict. And cops are never going to want to serve under him. Remember, he's the guy. He wasn't just to fund the police. He was to fund the police on steroids, right? He called the cops wicked, corrupt, anti-queer, and said that not that he wanted to defund the police, but that he wanted to dismantle them. That was his word.
So no police. Bodegas will go out of business because of the family-run, city-run grocery stores.
That's never going to go anywhere.
The taxes from the real estate developers, they will leave. So who will be left here?
A lot of Zoran Mamdani supporters. I mean, I don't want to be alarmist about this, but New Yorkers are smart and savvy, and he's got a dedicated base. Don't get me wrong, but other people are not going to stay in this city with him being the mayor. They're just not going to. Wealthy people will leave and businesses will leave and cops will leave. That much I can guarantee you.
I do feel for the young voters and the kids 18 to 25, and they are believing the sizzle. They're not believing the reality. The truth is that the taxes and all of these decisions comes out of Albany. And if he could do these things, he would do it right now. And he's not.
He's not.
So people are just looking for a way out, and they don't really know what they're looking at. Am I correct?
No, it's true. And they're not even looking at the fact that this guy, he's now in his second term as an assemblyman. He's had 3 bills passed. Are you serious? 3 bills. That's ridiculous. I mean, he's barely even showing up for his job.
So who do you think is funding him, and where do you think the support is coming from?
I read the first part of a report that was published online by a guy named Sam Antar. I don't know if you know Sam, but he's very good at this stuff. And he believes that there's this web of, kind of DSA supporters that were funneling money through intermediaries. I can't comment on that. And frankly, I don't know. I mean, people are going to be taking a very deep dive in that. I'm sure that there are tons of people that are doing opposition research on this guy because he also has weird travel patterns. Like he was in Texas for like a job that there's no real information online about. And then he was I think it was in Portland for a period of time. Before he ran for assembly, he barely held a job, but he was in all of these strange places in jobs that didn't make any sense for what he was doing. I mean, aside from being a rapper and being in his mom's production
his mother
company.
is a Hollywood producer, and I'm sure she has fantastic social media skills.
Listen, I've met the guy. He's a lovely guy. You want him in a cocktail party. But he's a very dangerous politician because he's like a silver-tongued devil. He can talk the paint off a wall, but at the end of the day, what is behind him are very, very dangerous ideas that are poorly thought through and completely ideological, not in a good way.
Well, let's just wrap this up it all comes down to votes, right? It all comes down to getting everybody to vote. So what message do you want to give to our listeners to vote, who can vote, how to vote, and how important it is? Yeah,
so this is going to be the most important election probably in the history of the city of New York.
Maybe of the country.
And I was going to say, certainly that's going to be the most important election at the time in the entire country. The nation rises and falls its economy with New York. Trillions of dollars of value come to the city every year. So I hope that people are as educated as they can possibly be. And my message to them is really clear, right? You don't have to choose a broken politician, whether or not it's someone who has had no management experience and scandal, or a disgraced mayor, or a disgraced governor, or a socialist. There is a highly capable person in the race who has deep integrity, has been doing public work for 30 years, and really knows city policy because essentially I've been walking the halls of power for the last 20 years as a lawyer, but a lawyer who's doing good things for people. I can do a much better job than any of these people without all the scandal and disgrace. And that's my message.
Well, I hope to lose this bet and that maybe you'll win. But never bet against New York, and stay tuned. I hope everybody chimes in and gets out there and votes.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Jim.